Hi guys, back with a new installment. Winter time, so it's a bit cold, so yeah, I'm dressing for comfort these days. But it was also kind of do nothing, rest day Sunday, more like resting my eyes from being on screens and stuff for like the whole week. Anyways, in this installment, I did say that I'd maybe try and do a hobby video at some point. So this is just to update you guys on what I'm currently doing. And I just realised as I'm recording, I can't actually can't spin the camera around on my phone. Oh well, that's fine. Back to basics then. Okay. So this is what I'm working on at the moment. So as you can see, it is a Wool and the Gang jumper pattern. Now this one, Wool and the Gang, you can actually, of course, those that haven't heard of it, similar to We Are Knitters, which I think is more American based, and Wool and the Gang is more British. Basically, they're one and the same. So they supply yarn, well, wool, whatever you want to call it, and they also have these really good patterns and kind of beginner sets. So it'll be a case of you choose what you want to make, be it a blanket, a scarf, a blanket, and they'll supply you the amount of wool that you need, along with needles and a pattern, so a guide for you to follow. The good thing is you pretty much get everything in there. The only drawback is they're pricey, except in hindsight I'm going to explain what I'm actually doing, what I'm using, the materials at least. Some of them I think are like, they're quite expensive, so it's like £80 plus, but to be fair, if you invest in your craft and you want to use like good quality, or you want to use thick wools for jumpers and stuff, like I'll show you the one I'm using now. I think this one is something crazy like 4-ply, I don't know, I'll have to read it. Anyways, it's pretty darn thick, so obviously thick wool is kind of hard to find, especially like getting a good one, like the colour that you want and actually feeling it in person. But the fact is, it's going to be pricey. So in hindsight, I was actually explaining this to a colleague earlier this week. So in hindsight, I mean, it does sound pretty darn expensive, but then if it's like a craft or something you want to get into, or just a new activity to do, it is probably cheaper to buy the set than it is to go and get things individually. The jumper I'm using, sorry, the jumper I'm trying to make at the moment, like, oh my god, I didn't want to think about how much I spent. It's definitely worth it because I really love how it's coming out. And the sad thing is this wool was actually on sale, but I'll get onto that in a bit anyway. But yeah, so basically the Wool and Gang sets are actually really good, but I personally don't want to be spending like £80 plus in one go for hobby stuff. Like, how much have I spent before? I think I don't go higher than 50 if I'm honest. But even then, when I do, it won't just be like wool. It might be, well, it'll be different types of wool, like different thicknesses and stuff, and then the accessories as well if I need needles to match it. I can't think of anything else at the moment. Hell, even if I need like crochet hooks, like I got that from Woolly Mahoosive a few months back, but then when I tell you this wool was thick, it was thick. Like, this is my wrist. The wool is probably half the width of my wrist. It's that thick. Like, I needed knitting needles that were 25mm. I mean, they did advise 25mm to 40, but nowhere in this lifetime was it going to be attempting to use 40mm needles. I would show you my 25mm. Where is it? Oh, it's out of reach. You know what? I'm not going to be lazy. I'm going to show you guys. Oh, that was dangerous. My Mason swag bag. So these are my 25mm needles. Now, if I was to compare that with these ones, just happen to be nearby. So these ones are 12mm. Look at the difference. It's that thick. Like, it's like a freaking steak. Like, and doesn't help that it's pretty pointy. It actually looks like a stake that you'd use, like a vampire hunter would use. And then I also got the matching crochet hook, because yeah, I really did need that for the throws that I was making with the really thick wool from Woolly Mahusive. And to be fair, yeah, I'm a little bit addicted when it comes to buying wool and stuff, but I blame my family, because one of them was bought for my birthday just to give me something to do, something new to play with, and unfortunately it was pretty darn plush. Came out pretty well. I would actually show you my throw, but really I've just gone and covered it. Let me not be lazy. Okay. Ooh. There we go. So that's what my throw looks like. Not too bad, and it is like pretty thick as well. So just trying to organise some stuff again so it's out of the way. But yeah, lost my train of thought. Okay, but at least back to sorry, just time checking. So back to my current project. So just checking my iPad of my Will in the Gang jumper. There's this really cool site called Lovecraft. Honestly, I favorited it. I have an account. It is great, but I do tend to neglect it. But basically, it's a really good site. So if you're just getting into knitting, I mean, to be fair, I've actually got my nice little library. I'm actually looking at it now, of nerdy books like maths, statistics, teaching stuffs. And then I've got my nice craft side, which is beading, knitting, a lot of knitting books, if I'm honest, a lot of patterns there. Yeah, so I don't really need Lovecrafts, but it's really fun anyway, just because there are certain things in my books that I don't have, which Lovecrafts does. And the good thing is there's actually, when I say there's a lot, there's like this massive glossary of free patterns for you to download, and you quite literally only need to sign up with your email account. Pretty straightforward. And that's where I actually got this Will in the Gang pattern from. So obviously somebody bought it and they uploaded it, which is really nice. I hope I didn't do something wrong. Sorry, I was just wondering if I should have disclosed that, but to be fair, people will do it on YouTube, and Will in the Gang has done that anyway, so doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they've gotten their money, and if you really want to make the proper matching jumper, Will in the Gang will get money anyway, because you actually have to go and purchase the matching wool from them. Anyways, moving on from that. So I think that's enough talking from me, and I'm gonna get on with this knitting. I just need to scroll down to where I was exactly. Okay, one of the cardinal rules with knitting as well, follow your pattern, yeah? As basic as it sounds, follow it. It says you need double knit yarn, or the Americans, I think they call it worsted yarn, and it encourages you to use 5mm needles. Follow it to the T. I didn't necessarily do that this time around, but I have actually done that with a lot of my other projects that obviously I've been selling or whatnot. But yeah, so with this jumper, I mean, their wool is amazing for Will in the Gang, but oh my god, they're chunky and it's hard to store. And if you guys can see my little craft area, like, yeah, no, the crafting is an expensive hobby, especially when you're making garments. So I'm sorry, now is not the time for Will in the Gang. Maybe if they do like a 70% off sale, of course, like I would buy a set to make a blanket or something, because I mean, blankets are great and easily overlooked. Jumpers, I have so many jumpers that I don't need to buy or make anymore. But anyways, so I've got the gauge. I basically found the gauge for Will in the Gang's wool, and the one that they use for this specific jumper, so I basically just tried to match that myself. I did come across Stitch and Story. See, shouting out someone already. And their wool is amazing, so I'm going to show you here. So this is their logo. This is their yarn. This is their Homestead one. and look at how thick that is. Actually, here you go, let me take this off so you can see. It probably doesn't look that thick, but if I was to compare it to like the double knit yarn, it is thick. Double knit is, it's not disgustingly thin like mohair, but it is thin as in it can take a little while to get through a project. Like, I'm used to using it because that's the type that I use for my baby garments. So the pinafores, the dungarees, the hats, the booties, what other baby things have I made? The shoes, yeah, all of those are double knit yarn. So basically almost the thinnest. Mohair just makes me want to cry. I bought one mohair yarn that I haven't actually used. I tried to use it on a blanket once, and oh my god, no. Like, logically, it's one of those things that you'd use for texture. So you'd and I wasn't say you'd have to, but it would be encouraged / wise to use such a thin kind of fluffy yarn alongside something that has a bit more body. So double knit and mohair would be amazing. I've yet to do that, but it's definitely something I want to do. I don't even have that many, but I do need to think of a project. Like, it might have to be a hand knitted hat or maybe scarf. I say hand knitted, I knit everything by hand, but I do have the round knitting loom, and that's a lot quicker than actually knitting with the needles. So when I say specific hand knitting, I mean with the needles and not with the loom. Anyways, I'm going to show you my bits. So I showed this first part. This is actually the back of my jumper that I'm making. I showed this in a previous video, and I'm not going to open it up. And oh my gosh, I forgot. What was it? I was purling. God, I almost forgot. And this is the back side. So a little bit different, but you're going to see me do some knitting. So I basically started, well, I started in 1x1 rib stitch, which is literally a case of knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. So to get a 1x1 rib stitch where you get this kind of elasticated bottom, you can't quite see it here. You'd have to have an odd number of stitches. So you start on a knit, end on a purl, and then you start on a knit and then end on a purl for your following row, then so on and so forth. You can actually do the same stitch with even numbers, except basically you can't have matching stitches. So basically, if you start with the even numbers and you start on a knit and you end on a knit, you have to start on a purl, and then you'll end the next row on a purl, and it goes so on and so forth. It did take a little while for me to take to, except you do, when your work is on the wrong side, no, not even the wrong side, basically when you do your next row, you'll see almost like a little bar, like a little line. That means that's the stitch you want to do as a purl. And then if it almost looks like a V, so it almost looks like, well, you see the little V's here, if it kind of resembles this, then you'd basically knit it. So anyway, it's similar to wrong side, right side when you're doing a stockinette stitch, which is currently what I'm doing. So stockinette stitch is one row will be knit row, the next one will be purl. So this is my stockinette stitch, that's how it looks. This is my right side, and then that's my wrong side. Okay, I actually did run out of wool, so I'm gonna have to go and attach some, so give me a minute for that. It was definitely a purl, there we go, but I thought I did more than that. Oh well. So, gonna pop that in, gonna take this off. Let's see if I can show you guys. No, doesn't really say. Nothing interesting on here, basically. Almost done. Had to give this another shout out. The Stitch and Story have these cute little bags, and I think they're like £10. But when I got my wool, like, I don't know, a couple months ago, I had it for a while now. I might need to buy some more. We'll see how I go. No, what am I saying? I'm gonna need some more for the sleeves. Doing. Anyways, yeah, so I think with each order, I can't remember there was a minimum spend. They were actually giving out bags, which is really nice. And it's cute. It's a good place to keep your wool while you're actually working, rather than using like a plastic bag or shoving it in the ottoman. Okay, so I'm just going to attach this now, and I might need to get quick closer so you guys can actually see. Okay, there we go. This isn't really a tutorial. I was sharing a bit of my knowledge, but I didn't really need to. There we go. Okay, so this is attached. I'm just going to tie that to make sure it stays in place. And I'm going to continue purling this row. So I'll do a check in a bit, or maybe halfway through my knit row that I'm going to do. So with this back piece, it's different to the front piece, because instead of me working stockinette stitch, so the knit and the purl in the rows, blah blah blah, until my piece measures 60 centimeters. This time it has to measure 55. I didn't actually get a hold of my tape measure, which is silly, but I mean, after I went and got something to show you guys, I personally don't really want to be climbing up to get any more things. So I have my ruler instead. What I might do is use my stitch counters so I can actually do the halfway mark, or at least 30 centimeters. Funny thing is, I used to purl a lot stranger. Sorry, this probably looks really weird because you can't really see everything, can you? There we go. Probably looks a bit weird because, well, I do knit kind of strange. My aunt likes to criticize, but she'll just look at me and be like, that looks so awkward. It looks so messy. Okay, let's be careful here because this is where we connected the wool. What I used to do, there are different ways that you can add wool on. So basically, I remember reading, because reading my first knitting book, and they suggested that when changing colours, if you're doing stripes, always do it at the beginning of the row. But almost became a thing where I thought, oh, when I need more wool, I need to add that on at the beginning of each row. The fact is, wool is not cheap, and like, you don't need a really long tail to weave in. So I just kind of, I just add my wool mid-row. Before, I remember reading that you basically tie, so you basically tie a knot on the new piece, tongue twister. Basically, with the new piece of yarn you want to join onto your work, tie that onto the remaining piece of your current yarn and basically make a knot, so to speak, and then you can even knit it into your work. There's a way around it. Or what I really like is basically knitting your new piece into your current work and then just taking the remaining piece like this and the new piece and just tying it together. When I started doing that style, what I used to do is just knot it, then weave it in with a crochet hook. But really, what I found instead is it's better to just tie it loosely so it stays in place while you knit. And once you're done with that piece and you've cast off, etc., and whatever else, then undo that knot, kind of match it into your stitch, or your pattern rather, and then knot it up, and then weave your stitches in. It sounds really long, but then when you actually take the time and do it, it makes your finished product look so much better. So that's basically what I do now. Let's go into a bit more knitting here. Oh, so I've got satin PJs on, so my needles, satin and plastic don't go, so my needles are just like sliding all over the place. Okay, what I'm gonna do now, I think this is a good length. Now, I'm going to get my ruler and measure up. Sorry, it's a bit awkward here on my bed. Okay. So basically, let's just stretch this out a bit more. And here, this space. I'm gonna pop my ruler here so I can see. Then I'm gonna go and grab my, okay, or not, I'm just gonna hold on to it. I'm gonna go grab my stitch counters. This was nice. This is actually a freebie from Hobby, as you guys can see on there. So what I'm gonna do, oh my god, I don't want to come out, my goodness gracious, come on. I'm gonna take a counter, I'm gonna pop that into one of my stitches, and this is what I did for the other piece, so I will remember. But just to talk you guys through it, these stitch markers are a good way to monitor the length of your piece. So this back piece needs to measure 55 centimeters before I move on to the next part, which will be decreasing and stuff. So right now, let me see, this one, that's 30 centimeters, and from there, so right now we're at 46 centimeters. Okay, so 46 centimeters, almost there. What is that? Another 9 centimeters to go, which isn't bad at all. But let me just put into perspective. Look at how long 46 centimeters is. So, I enjoy the sun in the background. So I know I was supposed to do a craft video where I did like a time lapse of my cousin's jumper, except so I kind of have to rush the final sleeve. It's been very busy, like 2+ weeks. You can probably just see the dark circles under my eyes. I'm just going to pretend it's because of the light reflecting off my hair that makes my eyes look so dark, the eye bags underneath. But let me just give you a quick update. So you can see there is one sleeve. This kind of mess here is the body. I'm trying to angle myself. That's the shoulder seam. This part I'm touching is actually the neck. So I remember doing that in a video. And what I'm currently doing here is the second sleeve. So not the best time-lapse video I wanted to do, but you can see my progress at least. I'll try and get a full body picture of the finished product, or even when she's wearing it, maybe. I'll just slap like an emoji or something on her face. But yeah, after I've done this sleeve, well, this final sleeve, I will then start the long task of stitching up the sleeves. And since I'm using Stitch and Story's nice thick Homestead yarn, I could possibly fit it into one of my darning needles, but it's so thick I might just have to crochet use one of my big crochet hooks to try and stitch up the seams. And I've said that out loud, that sounds like it's going to take much longer than just forcing that wool into a darning needle. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to force its way into a darning needle. But wish me luck, because it's gonna take a while and it needs to be done by tomorrow. Well, basically the 3rd of April is when it needs to be done by. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. Thanks for tuning in.